Hi everyone! I really like drawing, if you couldn't tell. And usually my art style is on a more cartoony and stylized side, but I also like to draw more realistically from time to time. And whenever I do, I might get a question or two about my process and how I capture people's likenesses, so this video is for those people. I will do my very best to explain and show how I do it. But first, the usual disclaimer, I am not a professional artist, nor am I an art teacher in any way. I am self-taught, and I'm just showing my own process. If it helps you, great. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. Also, the sketches I did for this video are admittedly not my best work. I usually draw realistically on paper, but I decided to do it digitally this time so you can have a clear view, so that took me some time to get used to. And I'm also using a different brush because I did not like how my usual brush looked for this. Anyway, let's begin. So I picked out some references off of Pinterest and I'll show you the methods I use. First, I try to break down the proportions of the face. I usually just do it in my head, but I saw this method on TikTok the other day where you draw over the reference with different colors so you have a visual map of the face, kind of like drawing guidelines over your reference for poses. From here, it can differ depending on the reference. What I mean is, for me, some people are easier to draw than others. It's usually people with really pronounced and unique features that are easy to capture and be recognizable. My usual method is how I usually draw. Do the guidelines, start with the eyes, eyebrows, nose, then do the face shape, and the rest of the drawing. That's what I usually do, both with realistic and stylized art. That's what I'm used to, and it works most of the time. I have talked about this in some of my videos, but in the past I had a pretty long phase of just drawing realistically. And I remember I would try to recreate every little shadow, every little line of the face. I also wasn't super confident in what I was doing, so on top of all of that, my drawings also looked blurry. Now my realistic art is a lot more simple, and I think it works much better. I'm not doing hyper-realism anyway. Here's an example from one of my previous videos. The old one is from 2018 and the new one is from 2024, obviously. I think this shows the difference really well. Now I just draw the features I mentioned earlier, and I might add some shadows to measure the reference better, or so that the features are more accurately shaped, I guess. Sometimes less is more. You don't have to draw every little wrinkle, or every tooth, or every single eyelash. If it's just a simple sketch or study, capturing the shapes and proportions is more than enough. They don't even have to look clean or pretty. Do what helps you learn. I also like to incorporate stuff from my stylized art. One, because that's just muscle memory for me at this point, and two, it makes my art recognizable even if it's not my usual style. Some examples are the eyes, specifically the lashes, how I outline the mouth, the inside of the ears, and stuff like that. Another method I use is I start with the face shape instead of the facial features. Sometimes it's easier for me to do it in this order, for whatever reason, especially when the face shape really stands out, but other than that, the process is pretty much the same as the first one, honestly. I use this method mostly when drawing a bigger portrait. My current sketchbook is the size of an A4 paper sheet, and I like drawing big faces in there, and I've been asked how I do it and how I learned to do it, but I honestly didn't really have to learn it, I guess. It definitely took me some time to get used to it, but I just kinda did it. Sketching out the face shape first definitely helps with placing the features. When it's a small sketch, it's definitely easier to do, and it's easier to fix if I messed up the placement of the eyes, nose, all that stuff. I can also add more details on a bigger drawing. Another little tip I can give is picking the feature you want to focus on and maybe exaggerate it in whatever way. For me, it's usually the eyes. I might make them bigger than on the reference. I always put a bunch of highlights in them, do big lashes, and stuff like that. I think that just in general, eyes are a very beautiful and interesting thing, and they are always one of my favorite parts of the drawing process. You can also focus on the nose, lips, eyebrows, ears, whatever feature stands out to you. Humans are very unique and interesting looking. You can find references that fit your style and tastes. Maybe your art style has, let's say, big ears, and you can translate that to the portrait. For me, it's also easier to draw people that already have unique and recognizable faces or features. Some people are also just really easy to draw, in a good way. We all know about the Pedro Pascal is the easiest to draw and Zendaya is impossible to draw thing. This is a more specific example, but I always struggle to draw Josh Hutcherson, but when I draw him with facial hair, it's a lot easier and looks more like him, because the facial hair is another recognizable feature. I also find people with, I guess, ethnic features a lot easier to draw. Big noses, hooked noses, big eyes, slanted eyes, big cheekbones, strong jaws, the list goes on. I find this kind of features much easier to capture, to stylize, and it's just fun, but that's what works for me. And another method I want to show is drawing not to recreate the photo, but to study the shapes, to stylize them, to learn the shape language. When I do these, I exaggerate the features, maybe try to adjust and fit them into my usual style. It might not look exactly like the reference, but I find it really fun and helpful. And doing face studies in general is incredibly helpful. It helps with the expressions, different angles of the face, helps get rid of same face syndrome. I have a video on SFS actually, and there I said that I don't think it's as much of a problem as people tend to make it out to be, but I can't deny that it does slow down your progress and makes for, well, repetitive art. So if you have this issue and want to get rid of it, from my experience doing face studies really helps. Even if at first the sketches maybe didn't look exactly like my references, I was still learning something, and now I would say I'm decent at it. Not an expert, but definitely better than, let's say, a year ago. My mindset around realism has changed as well. My long realism phase I mentioned earlier happened pretty much because I thought if you want to take art more seriously and get better, you just have to do realism. And I've seen discussions about whether or not you should be able to draw realistically to call yourself an artist, or that you must learn proper anatomy before getting into stylized art and breaking the rules. My opinion is, if you want to do realism, do realism. If you don't, then don't. Is it useful to know anatomy and do realism? Yeah, it is. But is it required? I don't think so. It can help in studying and practicing, and of course finished pieces look really nice, but if that isn't your goal for your art, you don't have to do it. I always went for more realistic proportions, even when my style was far from realism, and I want to be able to draw different things for myself and my art. That's all. Went off on a bit of a tangent there. Another thing I want to mention is it also helps to study different faces, different ethnicities, different age groups, different angles. It might not look perfect first try, but it also really helps. I still have room to grow, but I'd say I've gotten much better at diversifying my style. If I draw a black character, I can make them look black. If I draw an Asian character, I can make them look Asian. I can imagine different types of faces when designing new characters. I can mix and match the features. And doing these face studies played a huge role in that, and still does. I could still work on drawing old people, for example, but it just shows that we are all learning and growing. And this is honestly everything I had to say. I usually don't think too hard about my process and how I do things. I just do them. But I hope this was still at least a little bit helpful. And even though the sketches I did specifically for this aren't the best, I hope it at least showed how I draw. A bit of a shorter video this time, but I hope you liked it. If you have more questions or you want to see more tutorial type videos, let me know in the comments. Subscribe, comment, like the video, all of that. Check out my other socials, they will be on the screen and in the description. Stay safe and I'll see you in another video. Bye!